a 6 to 10 inch rain gradient extends quite a way, pretty much follows the Mississippi River all the way up just to the northern tip of Tennessee and slightly beyond. So that's an interesting area there that's all going to get a huge amount of rain, and all of the tributaries and the Mississippi River itself could be inundated. How much is that flooding risk upstream? Does anyone know?
Trust me, it seems quite significant, as much of the Mississippi River is already cresting rather high.
Well, there we are, looking at
And
the risk of flash flooding here. 20% moderate, extending through almost as far as that 6-inch rain boundary. High chance, 50% or higher flash flooding for still a large part of Louisiana there. So it is still a serious situation as we watch the storm move in. Alright, let's take some questions. There's a question that's a bit ambiguous. How long do you think it will hit? Not quite understanding the grammar of that question. I assume a landfall time estimate, which is easier said than done with this storm, because where is the center again?
Oh, it might have already hit land. Like, I don't know. We don't know.
Indeed,
It
no
could
one
be-
seems to know. Not even the National Hurricane Center.
It could be just like a mesovortices rotating around a common center, or it could be like actually the storm did make landfall, but we just don't know it yet. It's hard to say at this point. It's definitely one of those
making
difficult
landfall right
storms.
Yeah.
Just trying to see if we can get some early visible imagery.
Hmm.
That might take
I
a
don't
little
know
bit
if
of time.
So I know if you look at the Lake Charles radar, you could you able to make out
You've
like some
sent in an
sort of
annotation, Isaac. Shall we show that?
feel like it.
Well, there is an annotation that you've sent in. What is that depicting?
Well, where the possible center might be. This is the original center that we were tracking. What 4 or 5 hours ago when we were going live at around 3 in the morning Central. It went up to the northwest, and now it's over by the looks of it over Lake Arthur, Louisiana at this point in time. We're near Lake Arthur, Louisiana at this time. But before that, though, there's another mesovortice right around in the same general region too. So that leads me to believe that these are just mesovortices, possibly. But then again, I don't. What do I know? It could be it could be the main circulation that went over land. But I just wanted to note that on radar.
Interesting. All right, so that's one thing that we're looking at there. Let's see. I'm just trying to get some other imagery up. Okay, look, we're going to have to do with a still image here. This is the mess that is Barry this morning. A mass of cloud, very little clear structure. Alright,
Yeah.
take 6 more questions. Is it possible a storm is splitting and breaking down? Splitting?
Well-
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know about splitting.
What do you think this storm's effects will have on Louisiana?
Flooding and price some storm surge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
storm
of
surge,
course.
though, maybe. Yeah, and then
Storm surge
flooding
could reach
probably.
6
it
feet.
looks like.
yeah, lots of significant storm surge and freshwater flooding, especially further inland and along the Mississippi River.
Asking us for radar images. I can't bring them up here, but if anyone wants to screen share them for us on the stream, then you're welcome to. A question about 4E. Is it getting sheared to death? Haven't even looked. Probably.
Probably is, though, yeah.
Last I looked at it, it was being sheared, and it was diminishing significantly in terms of convection this morning, but it's had a resurgence recently, but it's still being sheared.
And just to reiterate, that it is a stage 5 on the CDPS scale. That was upgraded earlier today. When was that now? I think it was when we were off air earlier?
I know we had it on the update as a stage 5.
Yeah, of course, the update that came out an hour or two ago having stage 5 on the CDPS, which is devastating in its category on that 10-tiered scale. So that is quite severe. That is assuming it reaches hurricane status by the time it makes landfall, which it might not. So you're looking at borderline stage 4, stage 5 here.
That's interesting.
What else do we have? Just looking through here. Why do we still have a 1% chance of category 5? Because we can't use a 0% graphic on that one at the minute. So
Yeah.
1%
Who
may
knows?
as well be 0%.
It could just defy all.
No,
rules
don't
and
even
just
mention
get
it.
Well, it's not going to happen, but who knows?
How do you know?
Who knows? Okay, it's
Alright.
not going to happen.
Isaac,
No.
show us what we're looking at here.
Well, right there is a loop over. Oh my goodness! Excuse me for my voice there. I don't know what happened. This is a loop over the last 200 radar scans off of the Lake Charles radar. You can make out the mesovortice going down like that in the first few frames, and then the second one coming in and going over pretty much the same general regions. That's leading me to believe these are mesovortices rotating around either a common sensor here, or like I said, it could be just my early mind playing tricks on me, and I could actually be the legit sensor there. But looks like maybe some mesovortices rotating around here, so it looks like it's quite close to landfall, if I had to say so myself, if it hasn't made one already. Looking at that.
Alright, let's just get some information here. Looking at the real-time ATCF, which is experimental only. I'm just getting the coordinates now, the latest coordinates as of the top of this hour, which puts it, just clarifying here, still 7 miles off the coast of Marsh Island, according to the real-time experimental ATCF. The National Hurricane Center will update at the end of this hour, and at the moment, just to read out what their warnings are. A hurricane warning is in effect for Intracoastal City to Grand Isle, a tropical storm warning for the mouth of the Pearl River to Grand Isle and Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas, including metropolitan New Orleans, and Intracoastal City to Cameron. A storm surge warning is in effect for Intracoastal City to Biloxi and Lake Pontchartrain. A storm surge watch is in effect for Biloxi to the Mississippi-Alabama border, and a hurricane watch is in effect for the mouth of the Mississippi River to Grand Isle and Intracoastal City to Cameron. And a tropical storm watch for east of the mouth of the Pearl River to the Mississippi-Alabama border. Given where this storm is likely to make landfall, and if it was to become a hurricane, it's making landfall right on the western edge of the hurricane warned zone. And is anyone surprised that they haven't extended that hurricane warning?
Well, I mean, really, if there were going to be hurricane force winds, they would be on the eastern side, I would think, because that's usually the strongest side of the storm.
Interesting. A question just came in there. Is the worst yet to come for New Orleans? Well, the way it's gone here, there might be some more rainfall yet, but how much rain did we have them expecting now? I think it's 5 inches of further rain in New Orleans. Winds should begin to die down soon, by this evening. So I'll give it till this evening and see what it's looking like then, and then I would say yes, probably the worst will be over by then. For definite.
Yeah, New Orleans seems to have avoided much of the brunt of Barry here.
More questions about whether there's been any tornado touchdowns. There was a tornado warning early this morning at about 2 a.m. We were live covering it east of New Orleans. That's the only one I've seen. There was one in Mississippi an hour or two ago as well. But apart from that, I haven't seen much. I wasn't around for much of last night's coverage, so I'm not sure what you were spotting back then. But looking ahead, nothing much going on at the minute. Of course, the bulk of the storm is still well offshore. Much of the heavy weather, so we might start to see more of that activity.
Yeah, I'm looking at Recon right now,
Yep.
and yeah, it looks like the highest winds that they're recording now in the latest mission, AF304, looks to be about 59 or 58 knots. Surface level, there's about 2 readings that are suspect, but there's a few that are not. And those are, keep in mind, those are 10-second winds there. Those are not 1 minute sustained, so you probably want to lower that down by about 10 miles an hour.
So they're not finding any hurricane force winds?
At this point, no. But then they're traveling down south. So if they were to find any, it would probably not be in that part. It would probably be more on the northeastern side, where they recorded hurricane force flight level winds earlier.
When do you think they'll be back there?
Probably in about an hour or an hour and a half, depending on where they decide to. If they decide to go to the left or to the, if they decide to go to the west or the east, rather.
Well, that's
Sorry,
inconvenient. The National Hurricane Center are updating in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there is the latest radar on the screen. Just trying to get some visible satellite through slider here, which is a little bit glitchy, but you're starting to see some of it at least. And not too many convective towers firing off.
Yeah, I mean, if this thing hasn't made landfall already, it's really darn close to. But like Cooper was alluding to earlier, that could be a telltale sign that it did make landfall, or at least is really, really close to making landfall, and it's losing that those sea surface temperatures as it's doing so.
Ah, yes. Good point.
Oh, sorry for that.
Let's go back to the infrared, because I think it loads better on here. So there's the latest infrared loop here, and that covers a 2-hour period roughly. And you can just see how the black areas, which are minus 75 getting on minus 80 degree cloud tops, the colder the better by the way, have been really depleting, and it's now down to generally minus 70s at the most, and not much of that even.
Yeah, it's certainly been degrading in terms of cloud top temperatures.
What's the cause? Wind shear, dry air? Let's see if we can get some water vapor imagery out of this here.
Last I saw, I don't think dry air was too much of an issue, but I could be wrong.
It still lingers off to the north, but this graphic probably shows that depletion of the cloud tops even better. Just how they have died off in just a 2-hour period here, which really sheds quite a bit of doubt over whether this is actually a hurricane or not, like the ATCF is suggesting. I would be quite surprised if NHC went with hurricane status based on this, unless they find a direct observation on the ground. They went with 70 miles per hour initially because there was a weather station on Eunice Island, which I think is just offshore somewhere, that recorded winds of 71 miles per hour. I've checked that location since, and winds have gone down to 66. And apart from that, it's recon. They're not finding anything at the minute, and satellite appearance is getting worse. So it's all pointing towards this not being a hurricane. Stranger things have happened, and they might find some crazy reason to go with hurricane status by the end of this hour. We'll see. And then we'll have to scrutinize it very closely.
Yeah. I mean, we've had storms that have been lopsided and asymmetrical before, and still been hurricanes before. A good example that I could think of off the top of my head would, of course, be Earl of 1998. that one was pretty lopsided and was classified as a hurricane. I think solely due to recon alone. If recon wasn't in it, it would probably been a lot more weaker. But there's a lot of examples of that around.
Yeah, interesting. We will pick up any updates as soon as they arrive. The ATCF hasn't done one of those irregular updates that it sometimes does, so it looks like they're sticking with that number. The latest information from the real-time ATCF, which we've been watching very closely because it's depicting the storm just 7 miles offshore. That is experimental, but we are looking at those numbers nonetheless. The latest information is that it is now... I've just got to plug the numbers here. And I've got to be careful where I point my mouse. It's now 6 miles offshore, according to the latest real-time ATCF. That is, again, experimental, non-operational, but that is one of their indicators that they might well run with. 6 miles off Marsh Island. So that brings it very, very close. If it's true.
Yep.
Of course, landfall is a very symbolic thing when it comes to these cyclones. It doesn't mean a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. Of course, it does mean that the storm has pretty much run out of time for intensification, but usually it does run out of time slightly before landfall. And of course, the storm's impacts, the full impacts, are usually felt also slightly before landfall. So the landfall itself, especially with weaker storms, is more symbolic than anything. Doesn't mean too much in the grand scheme of things.
I just wanted to put a little update on recon. Recon is turning to the northeast now, so we're probably going to get some readings of the strongest side of the storm. If there's any hurricane force winds in there, it'll probably be seen within about an hour or so.
A whole hour?
Yeah, because it's not that far away for them to make it towards that kind of heaviest core of winds. So I'd say about maybe an hour at most, maybe an hour and a half if they have any technical difficulties.
Not in half an hour then, because that's what the NHC would love to get, readings in the next half hour before they put out their update.
It depends. They're already getting hurricane force flight level already, so it could be possible.
That's interesting. So how far away are they getting those hurricane force flight level winds?
Probably, see here, maybe 30. I'm just guessing here. This is not like an actual like reading, but probably about 30 miles away from where the possible center might be.
And planes fly pretty fast. I think they'll get there within 30 minutes.
Well, they're moving northeast. Yeah. I'll just send you a picture actually and see what you make of it.
Yeah, they're
because I'm not gonna guess the meeting stuff.
All right. Well, we'll see if we can show that in just a moment. Well, that is the picture that Isaac's put through to us. So they've just gone down there at the bottom, and they're moving up towards the northeast. And I mean, really, the strongest winds by now will be pretty much exactly where they're flying into in the next 10 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We might have some breaking information that comes in at any time here. We are sitting and waiting to see whether there is any observational evidence to suggest that Barry is a hurricane, because we're struggling to see it on satellite imagery and we're struggling to see it on the ground. So can Recon, the hurricane hunters, find hurricane force winds, and that would mean an upgrade to hurricane status, which is obviously pretty bad news. It would be just the 4th named storm to make landfall in Louisiana as a hurricane in July. The other 3 were Bob in 1979, Danny in 1997, and Cindy in 2005.
Yeah, that is if it gets there.
What are you implying? It'll stall for 5 days and die?
No, I'm saying if it. No, I'm saying if it
If
gets
they
to
find hurricane
hurricane
force
step.
winds.
If it gets to a hurricane, that's what I mean. It might not.
Sure. Well, this is a fascinating hour that we have ended up in here because it could make landfall this hour according to the experimental ATCF data. We could find a hurricane this hour. The National Hurricane Center will be updating with the latest information within the next half hour, usually a little bit early. Hurricane warnings might get extended, so stay tuned because some important information might be coming up here. Anyone like to make any more comments here before we take a short break?
Well, I'm looking at this right now. The funny thing is, Recon with the center that I think they are like suspecting what they think is the center has already made landfall. So I don't know if that means that the
Right.
storm has made landfall yet, or it's just this is a weird storm. That's all I gotta say.
We keep saying that,
Mind-boggling.
sounding a bit like broken records, I know, but that's all we can really say about this storm at the minute, especially when it looks so poor. Visible isn't really producing any results. Recon will tell us some more about the structure of this storm if they get round there. But they don't really fly over land, do they?
No, they're not. I don't think they're. I forgot exactly why they don't. I think they're just like not allowed to. So they're just have to rely on ground
Suppose it
observation
could be
from.
a safety
Uh,
hazard from flying debris.
yeah, true. From the drop zones.
Well, no, not that, but flying debris from buildings or what have you, loose objects hitting recon planes.
Yeah, true. True fact. Yeah.
I assume
True
it must be
statement.
that. All right. We might take some more questions in the next half hour. We're gonna take a short break now. Only a very short one. We'll have the latest information on this storm and whether it's become a hurricane or not in the next half hour. Stay tuned. This is Force 13 Live. This is Force 13 Live. We're back with Tropical Storm Barry, but for how long? Could it be a hurricane in the next advisory from the National Hurricane Center, which is coming out within the next half hour? I'm joined again by our team, consisting of Cooper, Isaac, and Ryan. Any news for us over there?
Not any from me. Oh yeah, there actually is some for me. Recon looks like they're finding. So far, they found peak surface winds. Peak 10-second surface winds of about 63, 2 knots or so.
Ooh.
Within the past 3 minutes here. But those are 10-second readings again.
Still a little bit to go. Ooh, that's very close. That is very close. 64 knots is hurricane force winds, 1 minute sustained.
Yeah. But that's all I have for now.
There's not a whole lot about Barry I can say that hasn't already been said.
Well, we continue to look at the imagery here of the demise of those cloud tops in the last few hours. But is it enough to prevent Barry from reaching hurricane status before landfall? The ATCF, the automated system, is saying hurricane status at the minute, and the experimental ATCF, the automated system, is suggesting that landfall is imminent. Let's see if we can get another estimate now. It was 6 miles away, according to them, from land, and now it is 5 miles from land, according to the latest ATCF experimental. 5 miles. So drawing ever nearer throughout the hour. We start the hour, I think, what was it, 9 miles, and now it's 5. If that information is true, then landfall should occur in the next hour. We are, of course, waiting for the National Hurricane Center to update. They might hold it back a little bit to so that they can get some information, as much information as possible, from the Reconnaissance flight before they put out their update. I say that because we often expect them to put their updates out early, because they often do. But of course, they aren't obliged to do that, and the update could come out at what time is it over there now? 10 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah.
So it could come out at that time, but we'll be here whenever it does drop to see what their decision is. Tough one to call. What do you guys think?
If it did make it to hurricane status, unless the reconnaissance plane now suggested that it's the hurricane right now as we speak, if it was a hurricane, I believe it did it a few hours back ago for a very, very brief period.
Yes, and I'm inclined to tentatively agree that it probably did reach hurricane status some hours ago.
Possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
That is certainly something we'll have to look at in post-analysis. In the meantime, we are just nervously waiting here for the next update. Maybe some recon data might come in the meantime as to whether that bottom bar will turn yellow and that Barry will be a Category 1 hurricane. So if you've got any comments or questions whilst we wait, send them in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we can take your questions. It'll light up big and bright for me. But I might interrupt anyone at any time with the latest news. Of course, the gale force winds extend out up to about 175 miles it was earlier towards the east. I believe Thomas has joined us.
Yeah, I have. Hello to everyone on the stream. For those of you that have stayed overnight, first of all, you're nuts for staying that long. But second of all,
I know.
Thank you so much for watching the coverage, and thank you for supporting
Thomas
Force
was
13.
Thomas was streaming. When did you start streaming yesterday evening?
I think it was before the evening.
Yesterday
It was,
afternoon? What time?
I think it wasn't it like 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock?
yeah,
4 p.m. Central
yeah.
Time yesterday. And you took a break a little bit later on, and then I took the stream at 1 a.m., and you were there until 5 in the morning. And he's back
Yep.
again now at 9:37.
Yep. I've got my nice
More nuts than
4-hour
me.
power nap. Got my nice power nap, and I'll be able to go quite a while. I will admit that sleep was quite nice. But
Yeah, of
it'll
course,
last.
typically
Thomas.
when storms make landfall, we do scale down our coverage here, but the Force 13 US channel might be taking the initiative after Barry makes landfall. I'm yet to hear anything set in stone on that, but we do have a US channel if you're not familiar. Just search Force 13 US or on the URL on our YouTube page, just add US onto the end and it will take you there. We're still waiting for that update from National Hurricane Center. It might not be very quick. We're coming up to 22, so there's still a 20-minute period in which it could come in. Any news from Recon?
Let me go and see about that right now, actually. Yep, new. Oh, sorry, Cooper. Go ahead.
I haven't seen any new observations above 63, 64 knots from flight levels. So
That's interesting.
Yeah, only seeing.
Yeah, the winds are
maybe-
decreasing on the slightest pass.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, really, they've only found winds of maybe the support of only 70 miles an hour.
Question, do we expect anything else over the rest of July? In the Atlantic? Somewhat doubtful, not impossible. The Pacific, Western Pacific, looks like it might be warming up later this week, next week.
The strange thing about the Atlantic is, though, as soon as we had gotten 2L, 92L, which is now bare, we also have numerous tropical waves that are surviving at least longer than normal in the main development region for
Right.
July. So to see one of these make it to the Caribbean and into the Gulf and develop doesn't seem that like that far of a stretch. So I don't know. I think we could see one other storm, maybe two other storms if it's really unlucky. But we'll see. And if they do form, they may not even hit land. So it's not like they're all going to be land impacting storms.
Again, we are waiting for the latest from the National Hurricane Center. It will be very interesting to see what they go with. Thomas, we're keeping our intensity at 70 miles per hour. Do you agree?
At this point, yes. I haven't had a chance to look at observations in the past here too much. I'd agree with 70 right now. The satellite appearance does show that convection shifting to the south and to the east, just as was predicted to occur numerous hours ago when it was supposed to make landfall originally. But we are starting to see that occur now. With that being said, we're also seeing satellite appearance just when it comes to the general cloud tops themselves look worse as well.
Yeah.
The highest that I'm seeing is maybe 75. But before we were seeing maybe even close to the
But you're not
90.
You're not even seeing widespread minus 70s anymore.
No, and it's really just down to the fact that this is interacting with the land, and I think that it was strengthened right until now, and I believe the reason for that, honestly, is because the center of circulation itself is decoupled from the convection to an extent, and I think there is a fair chance it could be over land.
Here we go again.
Has this already been said before?
Yeah, we don't know whether it's made landfall, making landfall, or hasn't made landfall. Some observations, radar visible, suggesting that it might have made landfall. The real-time experimental ATCF says it's now just 5 miles off the coast of Marsh Island. And satellite would suggest that perhaps it's a little bit further south, but probably not anymore. So it's really interesting as to where exactly this thing is, and this type of storm makes us sound like total amateurs.
The visible imagery shows the center over land.
Is it the center though?
Yeah.
It shows
Yeah.
it shows the center of the broad circulation over land. Maybe not
Hold on,
the dominant.
I haven't been showing your imagery yet. Let's get that up on the screen here.
All right. Well, again, at least from what I'm seeing, is the sunrise is on Bear. We're seeing the convection really starting to get pushed farther south as the ridge at the 500 millibar height continues to build in and really prevent convection that does get to that height to follow due to the center not having that much influence in the upper level. What's going on right now is it looks like the broad center has made landfall, if you will. The broad center of circulation, if you put a center point on, looks to be over land. Whether the dominant center that is producing all the convection is over land is yet to be seen, although it doesn't really look like it because convection still looks to be firing off on the southern side quite a bit. But there has been enough weakening, at least in my opinion, in recent imagery to say that there is a fair chance that center is the center. But still, I'm going to go with the actual center, if you will, being just off the coast of Louisiana.
Interesting. And that's all we can really say. Interesting. What is going on exactly? We don't really know. We do know that the threat still is that rainfall. And as soon as we know anything, we'll let you know with the latest information. And of course that storm surge, which could reach 6 feet and probably already has in some areas. Rainfall could reach 15 inches further in central Louisiana. No longer predicting 20 inches of rain. Obviously some of that time has elapsed. Some rain has fallen overnight. But another 15 inches of rain is possible for parts of south central Louisiana. And a large area of 6-inch rain all the way up the Mississippi Valley, as far north as Tennessee, maybe even into southern Illinois.
Yeah, but it probably won't be nearly as much, be too much rain, though.
Yeah. I do find it interesting the ATCF at the moment does have this as a hurricane, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The NHC going with 70. I think it did peak earlier. I don't think it's that anymore. I think if it hit hurricane status, it did that while or just after we went off the air.
That is quite possible, yes.
Because that did look to be the inner workings of an eye-like structure that we're forming. But obviously, the storm's not going to be able to pull that off anymore. Barry's decoupled. And if you notice on visible imagery, it's actually starting to look similar to its old appearance. All the convection is displaced to the south.
Yeah, I remember you drawing those time and again.
Yeah.
Essential overcast. And we just have this center now. So I feel like we're gradually transitioning from normal tropical cyclone back to Barry being Barry. So
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see if it manages to completely change its appearance back to what it once was. But it's kind of fascinating to see a storm like Barry evolve because of just how strange its evolution has been.
The nervous laughter continues on Force 13 Live as we wait for the National Hurricane Center update, which is due within the next 15 minutes, which could call Barry a hurricane just before it makes landfall. It's a long wait. Any more news from Recon at all? But last time we heard they weren't getting very much.
Yeah, they really haven't been getting much. Yeah.
Yeah, the new update hasn't gone in yet, so can't say much.
The winds were picking up as of the last update as it headed northwestward, but I'm not sure if this trend will continue over the next few minutes.
Now, it is entirely possible that the National Hurricane Center are waiting on Reconnaissance plane information before they put out their next update. That has happened before, so it could be going right to the wire as to whether we get a hurricane out of this or not. Again, just like a landfall, it is mainly symbolic at this point between tropical storms 70 miles an hour and hurricanes 75 miles an hour. The color changes from green to yellow on our scale, and it changes from a storm to a 1 digit on the center of the storm. But apart from that, the winds aren't really very much different, although they could be slightly larger in coverage and obviously slightly stronger near the center.
Yeah, and I mean that's honestly what would happen. I think that's already what has happened. I no longer think this is a hurricane, but I think it was at some point. And I think, like you said, Nathan, looking at this in post is going to be an interesting endeavor to see if there's enough evidence to indicate this is a hurricane.
I think there might be.
I think there's a very good chance of that.
Okay.
We'll see. So this next advisory is going to be a full advisory, correct?
It is indeed. And again, we are a little bit quiet and static at the minute on our stream right now because we are just looking out for all of those latest observations. This is an extremely close call as to whether we get a hurricane out of this or not in the next 15 minutes. There's not really much else to look at the minute until we find out what the actual outcome is. Does anyone else have anything for us right now?
So, just waiting for the NHC's update.
Pretty much.
That's it.
Well, if you're worried about tornadoes, there aren't any tornado warnings in effect right now. And if you're worried about flash flooding, there aren't any of those in effect right now either. So the two main severe weather hazards aren't in play at the minute.
That's good
hang on.
news.
Pardon?
I'm seeing a peak 10-second wind reading of 75 knots recently, but I'm not sure if this is going to be included in an update. I may be mistaken, but we'll have to wait and see.
So that would be flight level, though, right?
Yes, flight
Yeah.
level.
But that could still bring it over 65 knots at the surface.
Well, a peak
No,
peak
it's-
surface.
That'll be
We've
close.
we've got a recent peak surface wind, but this is suspect. This is a suspect reading, so you get to throw this out the window. But peak 10-second surface wind, I would think of about 62 knots or so in the last pass, and before that, the next highest non-suspect reading looked like it'll be about 59 knots or so. 10-second reading.
Yeah. It's definitely looking like around 60 knots there with the maybe 65, but I don't know.
But yeah, they're heading for the center again, so we'll see what's going on.
Yeah, this could be right down to the wire, like Nathan said, with just when the NHC releases their latest advisory. It's going to be really interesting to see if they make the hurricane status upgrade. They've been forecasting it for so long here, and at least as of right now, it doesn't look like it very.
Yeah, they've been forecasting it, I think, ever since they designated it PTC2. They've been, forecasting, ever since it formed, basically, or just before it formed, they were forecasting.
So the first advisory had a 75 knot peak, didn't it?
Yeah.
85, yeah, 85 mile an hour.
85 miles an hour.
Yep.
Well, it's still
Oh.
very quiet over there on the National Hurricane Center side of things. Any more recon information?
Not at the moment, unless somebody's getting it faster than I am.
Yeah, no.
Alright, well, stay with us. This could happen at any time within the next 8 minutes. And we're also looking out to see whether this storm has made landfall on the experimental ATCF system, the real time. I'm just going to get another approximation now. And it is now, according to them, 3 miles offshore.
Yeah,
You think that the NHC will call landfall at their advisory?
They might say making landfall.
That's what I would think they'd go with.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, looking at radar, I mean, I have the New Orleans and Lake Charles radar up, and it's hard to say.
And the
If that-
update
if-
is
if-
out, and it is a hurricane. Hurricane
Oh, wow.
confirmed. Breaking news.
Wow.
Barry is a hurricane confirmed from the National Hurricane Center. The tropical storm watch for the Mississippi coast has been discontinued. A hurricane watch for the Louisiana coast east of Grand Isle has been discontinued. Tropical storm warning has been issued for the Louisiana coast from Cameron to Sabine Pass. They're giving it 75-mile-an-hour winds, as you'd expect, with a pressure of 993 millibars. It's gone up, which is very strange. And we're going to spend the next 5 minutes in a big rush updating all of our graphics.
Well, I mean, that's what you gotta do
That's
when
one
you get a new
does.
full advisor.
What a fun time.
Yeah, and I mean,
And I
the-
can't guarantee they'll be finished in time, so bear with us, will you? Please.
I mean, the thing about the upgrade to hurricane status, I mean, the ATCF did it, but the thing kind of confuses me is that they didn't before now and now they are. I'm not sure what observation would indicate that. It doesn't look like the latest recon aircraft has much evidence. I looked at Doppler radar, and radar is showing that there could be some quite strong 2 hurricane force winds going on in near land at the moment. So I mean, Doppler radar might be a piece of evidence that they use in order to support hurricane status. I think it'll be
Last
very
time they did
interesting.
that.
I think they've done it before.
Yeah, I'm sure they have, but it might have been a while.
It'll be interesting to see what the forecast discussion says whenever that releases, because Barry's a hurricane, and we'll see what exactly does that. I guess we haven't actually looked at lower level wind observations yet. Let me take a look at that and see if
It's also key to note, it looks like it's moving a little bit faster now. It's moving northwest at 6. So that's
Northwest
hopefully
at
it
6, yeah.
yeah,
this
hopefully it
actually-
gets faster.
There's
this
so many
actually
things
makes
that need changing on this screen.
it actually kind of makes sense. It's a hurricane when taking a look at surface observations, because there are winds of 65 to 58, and the point in between the 65 and 58 is supposed to be where the strongest winds are, probably 65 mile an hour observation just off the coast of Marsh Island. So that actually kind of makes sense if that's what they're using for extrapolation. I'm not 100% sure, but
Well,
here we go.
Looking at the
it's
forecast,
just-
looking at the forecast discussion, it looks like the upgrade was mostly based off of the possibility that the strongest winds were not sampled from Doppler radar velocities and other surface observations and aircraft observations. They also know that hurricane force winds are limited to a small area east of the center, as one would expect.
Just to reiterate, there are no tropical storm watches in effect from this storm now. to bear with me just for a minute or two as we go into our intermission, because all of the graphics that you see by the screen need to change. Hurricane Barry is the latest news, though, as we take our short break here at Force 13 Live, Force 13 HQ. We'll be back with more coverage after this. Stay tuned. Coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype, and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.